My wife told me that she won't get mad at me for having a child I didn't know existed, so I need a fake kid to piss her off. My wife and I are watching Elf together and we saw the part where Buddy Will Ferrell's real dad James Caan tells his wife about Buddy, and his wife Mary Steenburgen gets excited about this surprise adult kid that pops into their life from a time before they knew each other. I point out to my wife that it's a little unbelievable that Mary Steenburgen would immediately be on board. I then comment that my wife would actually be mad at me in this situation, even if I genuinely did not know this kid existed and it was conceived before I had met her. She denies it, but I know my wife. We're in our early 40s and have been married 10 years. So, I need a 20-ish kid to knock on the door and tell me they're my kid and that they just wanted to meet me. Gotta be convincing and really talk about how your mom and I were once really happy before she died of something tragic. Job pays $100. Gender, race, etc. don't matter so long as you can pass for early 20s. Shouldn't take more than an hour of conversation, then you get a call or something and have to leave. Want to do this soon after the new year. You come up with the backstory, and I'll play along. I'll give you a little info up front after you take the job. Update 1, 16 days later. First off, I am still married and my wife thoroughly enjoyed the prank. So, to the very dramatic naysayers, one of which compared my prank to spousal abuse, several diagnosed me with a number of mental illnesses and at least as many said I was childish and cruel. To you I say, you're probably right. However, nah boo-boo. Stick your head in the doo-doo. We've been married for a decade. We know each other well enough to know what's over the line and what's funny. That said, it was harder than I thought to secure a fake child. Sure, I had a large number of interested parties and even a couple fabulous candidates, one of which actually looked enough like me that I started wondering if one of you got to my wife and were pulling the ultimate Uno reverse card on my prank. Unfortunately, interested and committed are two very different things. Multiple potential sons and daughters made it to the planning stage and found one reason or another to bail out. Let me be clear, I do not blame these folks at all. I don't think I'd have the courage to send the first DM, let alone actually go through with the prank orchestrated by a complete stranger. But I did find a suitable actor with the courage to come through and I still think it was money well spent. So here's a synopsis of how it played out. Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. My dog lost his mind, as he is wont to do, and my wife answered the door since I had pretended to take a call moments earlier. My son, looking about 20 to 25, taller and better looking than I, asked if I was home. My wife motioned to me and I came to the door. My son, who even shared my first name, said he had something kind of strange to talk to me about. I asked if he wanted to come in but my wife didn't think much of it. We came to the living room. I offered him a drink. He declined. My son is an excellent actor, by the way. He would later say it was the anxiety of the situation and not wanting to mess up that made his nervous demeanor so convincing. This is from memory, but it's pretty much everything. I'll let my son chime in with details should he feel like outing himself. Do you remember, old ex-girlfriend I mentioned at least once in my 10-year marriage in front of my wife? Yeah? That's my mother. It was my wife who reacted first with "oh no way." So I looked at her, feigning ignorance and then back at my son and said, "Is she okay?" "Yeah, she's fine. That's not why I'm here." My wife was nearly busting out of her chair, totally engrossed and completely consumed with two strong theories. 1. Her husband had a long-lost son and more importantly 2. Her husband hasn't figured out yet that he has a long-lost son. So I say, out with it. Kid, what's going on? I'm 22 years old. My wife's eyes essentially bugged out of her head, having now confirmed her theories in her mind. She looks at me, seemingly annoyed that I hadn't put these obvious puzzle pieces together and interrupts my fake kid. Nearly laughed but I held it together. "I think he's telling you that he thinks you're his father. My acting is not so great but I gave it a shot with weight." What? My look of shock could use some work, but it played for the audience. My son looked at me. She's right, and I'm not here to ask for anything. In fact I don't have a lot of time to stay, but I just wanted to meet you and maybe exchange numbers. Me. This is a lot to take in. I knew your mother a long time ago and she never said, I didn't know him. I'm paraphrasing, but this kid deserves an Oscar. She never told you. She only told me on Christmas morning. She didn't say anything bad about you, just that it was over and she was already dating my dad when she found out she was pregnant with me. Me. Wait, does your dad know? Him. Of course, and I've always known he wasn't my biological father. He's a great dad but lately I've been wondering who my real father was so I asked mom and she told me. Me. Wow. I freely admit, I had the easy part. My wife is not saying anything, just taking it all in. Not much else to tell in terms of the production. We exchanged numbers, then he got his own fake phone call reminding him he was late for something or other and I walked him out. The rest of the production was just my wife and I. I came back to the living room, doing my best bewildered act. We talked about it and it turns out, I was way wrong. My wife wasn't mad, miffed or even slightly annoyed. She was full on amazed, excited and entertained by the whole thing. I waited a few hours before I fessed up, but before I did, she kept saying how cool it was that I might have a son. And then when I told her it was all a bullshit lie I made up to prove a point, she laughed. A lot. I can't decide what amused her more, the effort I put into the ruse or the fact that I ended up proving her right in the process. Here are a couple gems from wife after I told her the truth. Where the hell did you find that guy? I'm glad your son wasn't a serial killer. I might have been mad if he came here looking for money. Next time you can save $100 and just assume you're wrong. You know I'm going to get you back, right? That last one has me a little worried.